Welcome back to the show and welcome to a very special month of interviews that I have lined up for you. This is my series called Authentic Relationships, and what we're going to be doing in this series is really having courageous conversations where we talk about honoring the truth that we have in our souls, in seeing that truth in one another, and really in having brave conversations and walking out truth in relationship together. And so my first guest for this series is Anja Leigh, and she is one of the first 3 women photographers to exhibit her work at the Minneapolis Institute of Art in the 1970s. At the age of 52, she started her academic pursuits, earning her Bachelor of Arts in English Creative Writing at the age of 60 and her Master of Arts in the same discipline at the age of 62. She then taught university and college level writing classes in the Los Angeles area before moving to Tucson in 2010, where she continues to teach at Pima Community College. Her poetry has been published in many journals, and she's read her poems at countless venues throughout the United States. And you may be wondering at this point why it is that Anja is joining me in this conversation on authentic relationships. And I would love to have her give you just a little background on why she has such beautiful lived wisdom in this area to share.
Okay. It's me. Hi. My husband and I just celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary. And we got married I got married, second marriage, at the age of 40. So that means I'm 80 years old. My husband is 75. My husband is African American, and we've lived through just all kinds of. I think what I wanted to say was, when I say that I'm in a interracial marriage, it conjures up for people an image like, oh, that must be really tough, and I bet you really met a lot of resistance or negativity in the world. And it's totally not true. My husband and I have traveled all over the world, all over the country, in so many different situations, and only once have we ever outwardly gotten a negative response to our relationship. And mostly I think it's because we love each other, we adore each other, we respect each other, and people feel that just kind of exudes from us. We don't know it. We have complete strangers come up to us and go, you guys are so cute. And it's maybe because we're so old now. I'm 80, my husband's 75. So I think in the last few years when people come up and go, you guys are so cute together, I think it's because we're old. But we weren't always old. And I just think it's that, it exudes. Like I said, we just exude that respect and love for each other. And it's not been easy. Marriage is not easy. And there was one time, I think we were about in our 10th year, and we were going to separate. It was like, I'll take the refrigerator and you take the washing machine. And then we kind of went back in our corners, and I thought, wow, if we did that, I would just be calling him every day and finding out who he is. And it was just a reaffirmation that we really are good together and we belong together. But I tell that story because I don't want to give the impression like 40 years it's been a piece of cake, because it's not. It's a challenge.
Yeah. You have such a unique way that the two of you met, and such an interesting place that you built your relationship from. And I'd love if you'd share a little bit about that.
Yeah. We met in a spiritual ashram in Los Angeles. And for those of you who don't know what an ashram is, it's a communal living situation where everybody there, we were in the same spiritual group, and we all were there to learn how to live together and to be in a spiritual community. And independent, this was in Los Angeles, even though I lived in an ashram in Minneapolis before I moved to Los Angeles. Both of us, and my husband's name is David and I had both, independent of each other before we met each other, had given up on relationships. We said, no more marriage, no more relationship, going to give our lives to God and service to mankind. And when I moved into the ashram and I met David, I immediately knew that this was the man I was going to marry. And I thought, really funny, God, he brought us together like this. And when we both gave it up, and he had done the same thing. So, but how we based our, because we lived in an ashram, but we had this immediate attraction. Had we not been living in the ashram, we probably would have moved in with each other right away. But because one of the rules at the ashram was you had to be married before you could have a room together. So we built our relationship on friendship. Voila, amazing. At the time, I was the editor of the New Age newspaper called the Movement Newspaper. And he did the accounting for it. And it was in the basement of the ashram. And we would be down in the basement, being all spiritual and running this newspaper. And but really, we built our relationship on friendship. And that was what my parents had told me. My first marriage, I graduated high school at 18 and 3 months later got married. Not built on a friendship, just built on, I want to get out of this house. So that marriage, even though it lasted 14 years, was not built on a friendship, or I didn't know myself. Obviously at 18, I didn't know myself. I look at 18-year-olds now and I go, oh my God.
Yeah.
At that, and that's changed over the years. Culturally, I graduated high school in 1961. And at that point, half the girls in my graduating class were engaged by the time but when we graduated, and there was this pressure, like, when, if you don't have a husband, at 18 or 19, you're just an old maid, you're just destined. There's a whole different thing that happened back then there. And even though I was an independent person, I still hadn't found myself, and the pressure was there to match up, to mate with somebody. It's been interesting to watch the evolution of that over the years. And if you have not seen the movie Barbie yet, I highly recommend go see Barbie.
I do too. That friend who I was just talking to you about, Beth, she teamed up with my daughter on me. My daughter had been asking me to take her to see Barbie for weeks. And I am not a big fan of going to the movies. I'm kind of a homebody. I really like to snuggle up in my pajamas and have my popcorn on my couch and kick back and relax. And I was like, we'll just wait. Beth said, you have to go see it. You have to take her to go see it. Make it an experience. So I took her, and I did not anticipate the reaction I would have to that movie. I was in tears.
Me too.
It was powerful. I saw myself in so many of the characters and situations, and really, my gosh, it was almost transformational.
Totally, yeah. And same, I went with a different expectation, and I went with a 19-year-old friend, and she had already seen it, but she didn't tell me anything about it. And really, at the end, so many times I was in tears. And at the end, at the end of the movie, I had to sit for 10 minutes and just collect myself. I was just like so moved, and it was so powerful. Did not expect that at all.
No, not at all. No.
So anyway, the point being, we've come a long way, and that even a movie like that is being so successful is just amazing to me. Unbeknownst to me, my husband went to see the movie when my friend and I went, and he hadn't told me. He was just curious. It was Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
And then he said it was just a phenomenon. So he went to see it. And so when I got home from that experience, he came home and he loved it. He said, this is a movie that everybody should see. Everybody should see this movie. So yeah, so we've come a long way from my 18-year-old 1960s. This was,
Mhm.
pre-feminism and all of that, but it was the culture at the time. If you weren't engaged by the time you were 18 and have your wedding, I had a hope chest. Oh my God, I had a
Mm.
cedar hope chest. It's so
Yep.
sad. Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway.
yeah, so you went through that experience of having your first marriage. What made you leave that marriage?
That one, uh, several things. At age 28, there's something called Saturn return, which, astrologically. So I didn't know anything about that at that time.
Mm,
But between 28 and 29, I was just becoming aware. I think I read a book by Bishop James Pike,
mm,
and I don't remember the name of it, but he had died at Qumran, where they discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls. And but before that, his son had died, and he was having experiences where his son was contacting him from the other side. And I was really kind of
mm,
interested in psychic phenomena. And so when I'd go to the library, I just totally close my eyes and scan the books, and then I'd pull out a book, and it was always just the right one. Where am I? Okay. So anyway, that started about 28, 29, where I started waking up to what was inside. And then, there were problems in the marriage, and then I started singing. My first husband was an artist. Um, and I picked up a guitar, I think at 21 or 22. I had always written poetry, so it was just a
mm,
natural to start putting songs to my poetry. And then as the marriage evolved and kind of started falling apart, it was just like I just have to leave. I'm gonna, die if I stay in this marriage. It wasn't like he was bad or abusive or none of that.
yep.
It was just I had to make a step for myself. And being a woman who decided to do that, I have paid the price for making that decision. It wasn't, yeah. So women still, are not allowed to leave marriages or their children without some kind of consequences to that. But to me, I would have. Oh, and then my first husband, he was very strong personality, an artist and very funny. And then when we got divorced, it was like, oh my God, I'm funny. I'm an
Mm,
artist. I'm these things. So this discovery at age, I think I was 32 or 30, must have been 34. And then for the next few, I was single for 8 years. Between 32 and 40, I was single, did a lot of dating. And I felt like I was a teenager, because I hadn't grown up from 18 to whatever. So I did all the stupid things that teenagers do when they're finding themselves. Um, but all the time, underneath all of this drama and whatever self-realization, when I was a child, very small child, I've always had a very strong core inside of me. I know who I am. That was just there right from the beginning. And I knew God. I knew, whatever it was. I could see all what religion was not supposed to be. And it was always kind of an enigma to me. Like, why don't people get how simple this is? Um, and then, somewhere in that divorce and before the divorce, then I got involved with this spiritual group, MSIA, the Movement of Spiritual Inner Awareness, that gave me some tools
mm,
to move along to validate who I was inside. I still had to go out because there is that inner part, but you need to go out there and
yeah.
have these experiences to validate. One of my big questions, like when I was 4 or 5 years old, was why don't people get how easy this is with religion and spirituality? And then when I lived at the ashram, both ashrams, the ashram in Minnesota was 11 people, and the ashram in Los Angeles was like 75 people. And I got to see how when like at an ashram, everybody's focused on the same thing. We're all there because we want to spiritually grow. Well, then come personalities and people. And I really learned to accept not only myself, but other people. Because if you are in a situation where everybody is in agreement and we're all headed in the same direction, but you cannot decide who left the crumbs on the table, and there's an argument about it. At times I thought, I get it. I get it. There's kind of like our spiritual being, and that's doing something over here unbeknownst to us. But we're still we still have to have these experiences that will, grow us inside. What was the, yeah, that was just an eye opener for me. And instead of making me not like people, I actually started accepting people for who they were. It was like, oh, I get it. I get it. You just consistently leave crumbs in the sink and on the table. But that has nothing to do with who you are as a spiritual being. That was an eye opener for me.
I love that you brought it to this place because I was getting curious about, you said when David and you met that you just knew that there was this quality of knowing. And I was curious as to what was that? How do you just know when you meet someone? I mean, I'm assuming that it's a different flavor than people talking about, oh, love at first sight, which I think is really just, it's very surface.
Right.
But there's a knowing that's deeper. And what is that? Where does that come from?
I have no answer for that. I just knew it. It was just so obvious. And he had the same reaction. It was just, and it was just something, I guess if you put words on it, it becomes a lie.
I love that.
So I don't know what it was. It was just, I just knew, and he just knew. And then we had to work out the details in the next couple of years. Also, when we got married, in the MSIA, the marriage vows are not, that you're married until death do you part. It's the vow is to, as long as you both shall love.
Oh.
And that is just so powerful, because in those difficult times, and we'd go in our separate rooms, and I'd go, okay, and then you have to ask yourself. You can get esoteric, like what is love? It's kind of, it. And so, yeah, so we still love each other, and whatever that means. But as long as you both show love, and we courted with poetry, and we read poetry to each other instead of vows. Yeah, so it's very, I think we're pretty special.
I think so too. And I think something I noticed is the way that you speak about becoming yourself and recognizing yourself, and that journey of out of self-abandonment and into self-discovery kind of made you fertile to have that knowing. I think that we can't see another until we clearly see ourselves, until we come home to ourselves.
Right. And that, again, I think we talked about this earlier with, there are words like find yourself, or be true to yourself. And, those were words floating around me. What my spiritual teacher told me was love yourself. He said, that's the first thing you do. And I go, oh, what does that do? How do you do that? So he gave me this exercise where every day I had to look in the mirror and say, I love you. And that was hard, to look myself in the eye and say, I love you. and then, just repeating those words, eventually it was like I got that deeper meaning of what loving yourself is.
Mm.
In our society, loving yourself is called selfish. I've been called selfish. I'm sure you have, dear. Yeah. We are called selfish. And so you have to work through that whole onus of that word. No, not selfish. Just I love myself, and it's not
Yeah.
selfish to do that. And until you do, how can you bring anything into any relationship, marriage or work-wise, if you don't know yourself? So
Yeah.
here's all these people out in the world, and you're centered, and then they don't know themselves, and they're doing all the
Right.
frick-a-frack around you. So your core has to be very strong
Yeah.
to withstand what's happening out there in the world.
Yeah, that's right. I've talked about this before, and something I wanted to echo in this series is that we have the wrong concept of bringing ourselves into relationship. I think we've been, at least I was told growing up, that it was 50-50. You come 50, this person comes 50, then you make 100 together.
Hmm.
And that is such a lie. That's so dangerous.
Yes.
If I only know part of myself, if I'm only embodying half of myself, if I'm not a whole freaking person, then how am I ever going to love another whole person? That's
Right.
impossible.
Right.
I have to be 100% who I am. And loving yourself is choosing yourself, is seeing yourself, which is what that mirror exercise does, is actually looking yourself in the eyes and saying, you, this soul who came here and got clothed in flesh and decided to have this experience, I love you. I
Yes.
love the wholeness. And when you see another and you get to experience that knowing, whoa, it's a whole expansive evolutionary in this incredible abundance of, wait a second, you're a whole person. You need nothing from me. You are complete. I'm a
Yes.
whole person. I have everything that I need to make myself full of joy and fulfilled. I am love. You are love. And we're seeing each other as that. And that's the knowing, I think,
Yes.
at least for
Yes.
me.
Yes.
Yeah.
The image that I had when we were first married, I had this image of like two trains, like he was on his track and I was on my track. And then when we try to do those cultural things, like, okay, now
Mm.
we're going to weave together and be, oh my God, it was like, kabam! And it was like, no, that doesn't work.
Oh.
So as long as we both stay on our own track and
Mm.
honor that and respect that in that other person, then it keeps working. And
Mm.
I see young people or just anybody get married now, and there's still that expectation, like you're going to complete me, or he didn't do what I wanted him, she didn't say what I wanted her to say, and that's just ego stuff coming in, and we're
Yeah.
still, we get caught up in it. We're
Oh, yeah.
human.
We're human. Yep.
It's still there.
Yeah. We're living a human experience. It's part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How did you stay? So you stayed friends for 2 years, you said. You built
Yes,
your relationship on a friendship for 2 years.
yes.
How was that?
I have to go back 42 years ago. Well, like I said, we both worked in this movement newspaper office in the basement. So everybody would be gone and the ashram would be sleeping, and we just talked, or we'd go to movies or out to eat. Um, I'm not going to promise I'll try not to cry. So the very first movie we went to was called Resurrection with Ellen Burstyn. And then after the movie, we went to the beach. I think it was either Santa Monica Beach or Venice Beach. And we're just walking and holding hands. And I'm thinking, okay, he's going to make a move on me. Never made a move. And I'm going, wow, this is really cool. He's not making a move, but what's wrong with me? Maybe. And then at some point, he just turned to me and he said, this is enough for me. I don't need anything else in my life. If we just spend whatever time we have just walking on the beach and holding hands, that's it. And I thought, OMG, that was very powerful. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. You're gonna make me cry. I'm over here trying not to cry at that stuff.
Yeah, so that kind of tells who David is, you know. And that movie, for me, that movie, it's an old movie, like this would have been 1981, 82 when we saw it. Probably 1981 we saw that movie because it was the first movie we went to. And the basic premise is that Ellen Burstyn she's a psychic, and she has all these people that come to her and she solves their problems and she tells them what they're doing. And, you know, she has thousands of people following her and she has books and TV appearances. And then at some point, she just is tired of that and she lets it all go. In the very end scene, she's in the middle of the desert someplace, living in a little trailer and pumping gas at a gas station. And you know, this little boy comes out of the car or something, and she just hugs him, and that's her ministry. That is so she let go of all the ta-da, but she still had that ability to love and to heal. And I thought, that's how I want, when I'm that age, that's what I want to do. And she became a beacon for me. That's kind of how I feel now, because I'm a razzle dazzle Aries. I like razzle dazzle.
Mhm.
However, you know, my core is just hold whoever comes into my presence. Like now at 80, something changed at 80, and I feel like, you know, to the universe of just whoever, you know, I don't know how much longer I have, but please, just universe, bring to me who you think I need to be in contact with or who wants to contact me. And I'm having the most amazing experiences. But it's because of Ellen Burstyn in the movie Resurrection that she gave me that image, you know, like, yeah, very. Oh, another story. We went to this maybe 15 years ago. We went to David's grandfather's 100th birthday in Arkansas, and I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go, you know, interracial couple, and we're going to Arkansas. So we land in the, you know, and we went out to get and the very first person we met when we get the rental car is this like flamboyant gay guy. I'm going, and he's black, flamboyant gay guy. I'm going, okay, Arkansas,
In Arkansas.
different things happening here. And then we went out to get our car, and it had a flat tire. And so we went back to him, and we went back out. And then the guy that's going to help us is like this stereotype of a, you know, a Southerner. He's got the big belly and his shirt's unbuttoned. And I'm thinking, oh man, here it comes. He's going to say it. He's going to, no, so helpful, so whatever. Anyway, we get to this little town, and David's grandfather was in Sparkman, Arkansas. He was a builder. He built a lot of buildings there, but he had a little grocery store. And there were over 200 people at this reunion and celebration of his 100th birthday. And here was a man now in a wheelchair. He had led this quiet life. And so many people got up and said, he changed my life. He affected my life. He made a difference in my life. And at that time, I was all razzle dazzle. But I'm looking at him and going, wow, here's somebody who's just like David, who's just quietly living his life and just not looking for anything, but just being who he is. And here's this homage to this man who had lived 100 years. Yeah, that was very powerful. And then we went out. More stories. I have a lot of stories.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So here we are. I think we weren't in Sparkman. We were in Arkadelphia, I think was where it took place. And then David and I, we lived in LA, so we used to bottled water. So we go to a Piggly Wiggly, and that's the grocery store in
Yep.
Arkansas. And we're looking for bottled water, and we can't find bottled water any place. So we go to the cashier and said, yeah, where's your bottled water? And so I think it was a young man said, oh, I'll show you where it is. And so we're walking back, and then he kind of is looking us up and down and going, oh boy, here it comes, here it comes. And he said, you're not from around here, are you? And I'm thinking, oh man, here it comes. He said, and I said, no, we're familiar. He said, oh yeah, well, we don't drink bottled water here. So back in the corner, there were like 6 gallons of dusty bottled water.
Oh.
So that was how he was seeing it. So again, all my stereotype just broke down. I was expecting I was afraid of the white people, not the black people, because I was in that situation. And I was like, I think there were maybe 2 white people at this reunion. Everybody else was black. So again, that's an experience, to be the minority. So accepting. I mean, black people are very accepting, very loving. Yeah. Anyway, that was those stories from them.
I love it. And I want you to share the story that you told me last time we talked about the little red tractor.
Oh yes. This is my lovely parents who told me they dated for 5 years. They became friends before they got married. But they'd been married maybe 40 or 50 years. Oh yeah, because I interviewed them. That was it. And it was like, what's the secret of your marriage or whatever? So they told me this story about the little red wagon and or plow. It was a tractor, little red tractor. That was it. My dad really wanted this little red tractor. We had a cabin up in northern Minnesota, and he really wanted this little red tractor. And my mom didn't want the little red tractor. She thought it was a superfluous, expense. And I think maybe it was like 2 years later or something, and he didn't wear her down. He just kept saying, I really want this red tractor, and she was able to process it. And finally, he got his little red tractor. And the point was, I think my dad said, if I would have bought that little red tractor against your mother's wishes, she would have hated that little red tractor. There would always be tension around that little red tractor. But we both waited until we were ready at the same time to have the little red tractor. And then it became, I love that little red tractor. No, we all did. So again, that was a benchmark for me when they told me that story. I hadn't heard that story. I just knew that they loved each other. There was respect there for years and years and years. And you can tell, you can't fake that. You cannot fake that. Not at all.
I think there's something in that story that it drums up in me, this idea that you've repeated a few times that I've been seeing in my own life about nurturing a pause, about occupying a space together, but also waiting. That there's something about just this waiting.
It's true, yeah. And I had to learn that because I'd see, I think when we were first married, I wanted an answer right away after whatever. And then I discovered that if we both kind of went away and thought about it, we had our own, we could process that in our own selves. And then when we came together, then the compromise or whatever took place. Or maybe, adamantly, I don't, either you hold on or you compromise. But either way, you've had a chance to process it yourself. Very important. But it's a learned skill. Yes.
Yeah, and getting harder and harder, I think, because we just kind of are steeped in this fast-paced society where everything is just, I want it and I want it now, and I want quick wins, and I want, you can't speed past certain things.
Right.
And relationships are one thing that you cannot, there's no easy button. You can't speed past them. It's only in relationship that we can do this next level of self-work. When we've done the work and we've come home to ourselves and we've found our wholeness, then you get in relationship and it brings up so much more that you have to work on.
Right, right. There's that romanticism leaves like the next day. Reality sets in pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I'm thinking too of, just in relation, not just marriage relationships, but in work relationships. And I've worked in, in big corporations, family-owned corporations. I worked for the church. I worked independently. I've worked in education. I was an educator for years. I worked in all those different situations, and each one kind of threw a different learning experience at me. But basically the same thing, like, who am I in this situation? Who am I? And how can I hold on to myself in this situation? And then just watching all the frick-a-frack going on around me. And of course, we're all challenged right now, just, with what's happening in the United States, and not just the United States, but in the world, just all of the upheaval that's taking place. I'm glad I'm where I'm at, sanity wise. And I actually see it as a really good thing. I think the upheaval is really good.
I do
because
too.
whatever we thought, was settled, like racism or whatever, it was laying underneath, just waiting for it to come forefront. So I'm kind of excited, not excited. It's not fun to watch what's going on. But I do think that there's some higher purpose or some higher energy that's taking place. And then quietly underneath, there's us that have been doing the inner work for years. And I just gotta believe that, it might come out okay.
Yeah, I think this is a really great example of as within, so without, because you do all the inner work and you work on healing yourself and you work on becoming whole, and then you go into relationship and it all gets dredged back up and everything gets aired back out. And that's what we're seeing happen in our world right now.
Right.
Oh my gosh, all of a sudden we're a collective who's got to figure out, how do I coexist with all of this and all of my yuck and all of the stuff that I didn't want anyone to see is coming out.
Yeah.
And now I have to deal with it.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Another image came to mind. I have put in my backyard. They're called Mexican petunias, and they're this flower. It's kind of like a weed. They just grow and they have this beautiful little purple flower on it. And every night, all those flowers go away. They don't die. They just fall off. And then the next morning, all these beautiful new purple flowers are there. And it's kind of like it's a metaphor for life. Like, at the end of the day, just let go of everything. And then in the morning, you have all these brand new flowers that are just purpley out there smiling at you.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I was thinking earlier that I wanted to talk a little bit about, when we were talking about the pause, about how you came around to finally being married, and you said that it was sort of this like back and forth dance of one of you was ready and the other one was ready, and you had to wait. So what was that like?
Yeah, it was like the little red tractor story. He'd be ready and I wasn't ready, and because I had been single for 8 years and I kind of liked all of that. And then he too, he'd been married before and he'd been single for quite a while. And, so I think in our independent corners, we were really wondering if we could pull this off and still probably maintain who we were. So then at some point we were both ready, and not ready because you're ready, but you don't know what's going to be there. No. Got to be ready.
Yeah.
But you don't know what's going to be there.
Ready to face the unexpected is about as ready as you'll be.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, it's kind of another analogy. I see parents, they're going to be first-time parents. They don't have any children. Oh man, they have all these theories. I'm going to do this with my kid. I'm going to do that. And they have all the books and they sign, blah. And then the baby's born. And within the first 24 to 48 hours, the reality comes in that this child is going to take you in directions you have no idea. It's kind of like marriages like that. And then I watch the parents as they grow and evolve into that. But there's always that theory, like, I'm going to be the best parent possible. And now I don't say anything. I just smirk and smile.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you in a week or two.
Playbook and throw it out. And, I'm
Right.
4 children in, and
yeah.
There were so many things I said that at this point in my life, I have this phrase that I like to use, and I just say, "Oh, that's cute." Oh, look at how cute that was.
How cute that is, right? Let me remember
That's just
that.
kind of how I approach every day now. I'm like, oh, isn't that, we make these plans and we have these ideas and we have all these hopes and dreams, and oh my gosh, it's just cute how much we think we've got it figured out.
Yeah. No, not like that at all. So again, relationship, and you just don't know where it's going to go. And coming back to, knowing yourself and being comfortable with yourself, to just watch that. I watch, people I adore make mistakes, and it's like, not mine. I'm here, but not going to interfere. And
yeah, we have to let one another learn our lessons. It's interesting. I think in my younger years, when I would be in a relationship, in all different kinds of relationships, I would want to fix or solve or save or, whatever. Oh, this person is suffering. Let me go in and help them.
Yes.
And now I look at it totally differently. I look at it from a lens of compassion, which means to suffer with. I can be present with you in your suffering and just be present. There's nothing that I will do or say. And in fact, if I were to do or say, it would minimize your ability to learn this lesson and grow in this way. So I'm just here. I'm just present.
That's it. Pumping gas and giving hugs.
I'm going to give a hug at every gas station from here on out now. Thank you. Would you like a hug? Do you need a hug?
Well, if we don't pump, we pump our own gas now, so we can't even. You'd probably get arrested or shot if you approach them. I don't know.
It's all right. I'll test it. Yeah. So I guess I'm just wondering, as we kind of wrap things up, if there's anything that we didn't touch on, or anything that you would give to, maybe let's specifically talk to an individual who is looking at entering relationship. Anything that you would say to them?
Well, the first thing that came up was just be present with yourself. Just be present with yourself. And also be aware that you're going to be challenged and pulled in directions that you don't anticipate. And then just always come back into your just very beautiful heart and the essence of who you are. And then bring that into the relationship, and then just let go and good luck.
As long as you both shall love.
As long as you both shall love. Yep.
Well, thank you for joining me. This was a beautiful conversation. I really appreciate your sharing it with me.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.